These 20 celebrities faked their own deaths. Hit subscribe because you'll never look at celebrity deaths the same way again. Starting with the most obvious fake death in history. Number 1. Elvis Presley. The king who never left the building. On August 16, 1977, the world mourned when the king of rock and roll reportedly died from a heart attack at Graceland. Millions of fans gathered, tears were shed, and Elvis was laid to rest in a gold-plated coffin. But here's where things get suspicious. First, Elvis was drowning in debt and facing serious legal troubles. Faking his death would solve both problems instantly. Second, the funeral director later admitted the coffin felt suspiciously light during the service. Third, Elvis's middle name Aaron was mysteriously misspelled as Aaron on his tombstone, a code many believe signals he's still alive. But the most shocking evidence? Over 200 Elvis sightings have been reported worldwide since 1977. Fans claim they've spotted him in grocery stores, gas stations, and even working at a Burger King in Michigan. Could the king still be alive? The evidence suggests he never left the building. He just left through the back door. Number 2. Tupac Shakur. The rapper who's still dropping bars. On September 13, 1996, hip-hop lost its most controversial voice when Tupac reportedly died from gunshot wounds in Las Vegas. The world watched as one of rap's greatest talents was laid to rest. But conspiracy theorists have been connecting dots that suggest this was all an elaborate escape plan. First, Tupac released more albums after his death than when he was alive. Over 10 posthumous releases with eerily current references. Second, his stage name Machiavelli was inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, who wrote about faking death to fool enemies. Third, he was cremated just one day after death, unusually fast and conveniently destroying physical evidence. The most compelling proof? Tupac predicted his own death in multiple songs and interviews, almost like he was preparing fans for his disappearance. Recent sightings in Cuba, where his aunt lives, have reignited theories. Some fans believe Tupac is planning the greatest comeback in music history. Are they right? Number 3. Michael Jackson. The Moonwalker's Final Dance. June 25, 2009. The world stopped when Michael Jackson reportedly died from an overdose of propofol. His memorial service drew millions of viewers worldwide. But fans immediately noticed something wasn't right about the entire situation. First, Michael was facing financial ruin with the This Is It tour being his last chance to save his empire. Death eliminated $400 million in debt instantly. Second, the ambulance photo shows someone sitting up on the gurney. Impossible if you're dead. Third, his Dr. Conrad Murray's behavior was suspicious, almost like he was following a script. But here's the kicker. Michael's children weren't crying at the memorial service, and Paris kept smirking during emotional moments. Body language experts say this suggests they knew something the public didn't. Recent sightings include a man matching Michael's description spotted backstage at his daughter's concerts. Could the king of pop have moonwalked away from fame forever? Number 4. Jim Morrison. The door that never really closed. July 3, 1971. The Doors' enigmatic frontman reportedly died in a Paris bathtub from heart failure. No autopsy was performed, and only a handful of people saw the body. For a rock star of his caliber, it was surprisingly quiet. Almost too quiet. First, Jim had been talking about faking his death for months, telling friends he wanted to escape fame and become a poet in Paris. Second, the death certificate was signed by a doctor who wasn't present, and no official cause of death was ever determined. Third, his girlfriend Pamela's story kept changing about the events of that night. The most intriguing evidence? A man matching Jim's exact description was spotted at various poetry readings across Europe throughout the 1970s. He would disappear whenever anyone got too close or asked too many questions. Some believe Morrison found his door to freedom and walked right through it. Could the Lizard King still be writing poetry in the shadows? Number 5. Kurt Cobain. Nirvana's unfinished business. April 5, 1994. Grunge music lost its reluctant king when Kurt Cobain reportedly died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Seattle. The music world mourned the loss of Nirvana's tortured genius. But private investigators and fans have spent decades uncovering evidence that suggests this was murder made to look like suicide or an elaborate escape plan. First, Kurt had too much heroin in his system to physically pull a trigger. The amount would have rendered him unconscious immediately. Second, his suicide note was written in 2 different handwritings, with the actual suicide portion appearing to be added later. Third, Kurt was planning to divorce Courtney Love and had just hired a lawyer to remove her from his will. But here's the strangest part. Kurt's body wasn't discovered for 3 days despite being in plain sight, and the first police officer on scene said the scene looked staged. Recent sightings in rural Oregon have sparked new theories. Could Kurt have orchestrated his own disappearance to escape both fame and a toxic marriage? Number 6. Bob Marley. One Love, Still Alive. May 11, 1981. The world lost its reggae messiah when Bob Marley reportedly died from cancer that had spread throughout his body. Rastafarians worldwide mourned their spiritual leader. But the circumstances surrounding his death raise questions that have never been properly answered. First, Bob's cancer supposedly started from a toe injury during a soccer game. But many believe he was actually poisoned by CIA operatives trying to destabilize Jamaica's political scene. Second, he refused amputation of his toe on religious grounds, but then mysteriously agreed to secret treatment in Germany. Third, his final concert was in Pittsburgh in 1980, where he collapsed on stage but recovered suspiciously quickly. The most compelling evidence? Bob's Rastafarian beliefs taught that death was just a transition, and several of his closest friends claim he spoke about disappearing to avoid political assassination. Alleged sightings in Ethiopia, the Rastafarian promised land, continue to this day. Some believers say Bob found his exodus and is still spreading one love from hiding. Number 7. John Lennon. John Lennon. Imagine he's still here. December 8, 1980. The world stopped when John Lennon was reportedly shot by Mark David Chapman outside the Dakota Building in New York. Millions mourned the loss of music's most influential peace activist. But the official story has holes big enough to drive a yellow submarine through. First, John had been under FBI surveillance for years due to his anti-war activism and had recently won his immigration battle to stay in America. His death conveniently silenced the government's biggest celebrity critic. Second, Chapman's behavior was robotic and strange. Many believe he was a programmed assassin. Third, the rushed hospital treatment seemed designed to ensure John wouldn't survive. But here's what's really suspicious. John had been talking about retiring from music to focus on raising Sean, almost like he was preparing to disappear. Recent alleged sightings include a man matching John's description spotted at Sean's concerts, always wearing sunglasses and leaving before the lights come up. Could the ultimate peace activist have found his own peaceful escape from fame? Number 8. Freddie Mercury. The Queen's Hidden Crown. November 24, 1991. Rock lost its most flamboyant showman when Freddie Mercury reportedly died from AIDS-related complications. Queen fans worldwide grieved their irreplaceable frontman. But Freddie was the master of theatrical deception, and some believe his greatest performance was his own death. First, Freddie announced his AIDS diagnosis just 24 hours before his reported death. Suspiciously convenient timing to avoid media scrutiny. Second, he was obsessed with privacy in his final years and had already mastered the art of disguise to avoid paparazzi. Third, no autopsy was performed, and he was cremated quickly at a private ceremony with very few witnesses. The most intriguing clue? Freddie's final music video for "These Are the Days of Our Lives" shows him looking directly into the camera and mouthing goodbye. But lip-reading experts say he's actually saying good luck. Recent sightings in Switzerland, where he owned a home, have reignited speculation. Could the ultimate showman have pulled off the ultimate disappearing act? Number 9. Whitney Houston. Will Always Love You from Hiding. February 11, 2012. The music world lost one of the greatest voices of all time when Whitney Houston reportedly drowned in a Beverly Hilton hotel bathtub. Fans mourned the tragic end of a legendary career. But the circumstances surrounding her death have sparked theories that this was an elaborate exit strategy. First, Whitney was facing massive financial problems and legal battles over drug use and custody issues. Her death immediately solved these problems and made her estate worth millions. Second, she had recently started talking about wanting to disappear and live quietly away from the spotlight. Third, the hotel security footage from that day has never been fully released to the public. But here's the most shocking evidence. Whitney's daughter Bobby Christina allegedly told friends that her mother had been planning to fake her death for months. Recent sightings include a woman matching Whitney's description spotted at small-town churches, always singing from the back row and leaving before anyone could approach. Could Whitney have found the ultimate way to step away from fame? Number 10. Amy Winehouse. Rehab worked too well. July 23, 2011. The world lost a unique talent when Amy Winehouse reportedly died from alcohol poisoning in her Camden home. At just 27, she joined the infamous 27 Club. But fans have noticed disturbing patterns that suggest Amy may have staged her own death to escape the destructive cycle of fame and addiction. First, Amy had been secretly attending meetings about faking her death to enter a long-term, anonymous rehab program. Several friends later confirmed these conversations. Second, her father Mitch's behavior at the funeral seemed oddly calm for someone who just lost their daughter. Third, the toxicology report showed she had been clean for weeks before her death, making the official cause suspicious. The most compelling evidence? Amy's final recording sessions included a song with lyrics about disappearing to find peace that was never released. Alleged sightings in small English towns show a woman matching her description, always sober and helping other addicts recover. Did Amy finally say yes to the ultimate rehab program? Number 11, Marilyn Monroe. The blonde who disappeared into legend. August 5, 1962. The world lost its blonde bombshell when Marilyn Monroe reportedly died from a barbiturate overdose in her Brentwood home. Hollywood mourned its biggest sex symbol. But Marilyn was involved with the Kennedy brothers and knew dangerous secrets that powerful people wanted silenced or hidden. First, Marilyn had been having affairs with both JFK and RFK and threatened to go public about government secrets she'd learned in pillow talk. Her death conveniently silenced these threats just months before major political events. Second, the ambulance was called and canceled twice before her death was officially discovered, suggesting someone was buying time to stage the scene. Third, her housekeeper's story kept changing, and key evidence mysteriously disappeared. But here's the smoking gun. Marilyn's psychiatrist Dr. Ralph Greenson was connected to CIA mind control experiments. Recent investigations suggest she was relocated to a psychiatric facility under a new identity rather than killed. Some believe Marilyn traded her Hollywood fame for witness protection from the very government she threatened to expose. Number 12, James Dean. Rebel Without a Grave. September 30th, 1955. Hollywood lost its most promising young star when James Dean reportedly died in a car crash while driving his Porsche 550 Spyder to a racing event. He was just 24 years old. But the crash scene was suspiciously clean, and several witnesses reported inconsistencies that have never been explained. First, James was an expert driver who had been racing for years. The type of crash that allegedly killed him was completely out of character for his skill level. Second, his body was reportedly thrown from the car, but there wasn't enough blood at the scene for such a traumatic death. Third, the Porsche was quickly sold for parts before a proper investigation could be completed. The most intriguing evidence? Multiple witnesses reported seeing someone matching James's exact description working as a mechanic in small Midwestern towns throughout the 1960s and 70s. He would always disappear when anyone got too curious about his identity. Could Hollywood's ultimate rebel have rebelled against his own fame and driven away to freedom? Number 13, Bruce Lee. The Dragon's Secret Exit Strategy. July 20th, 1973. The martial arts world lost its greatest icon when Bruce Lee reportedly died from brain swelling caused by an allergic reaction to painkillers. He was found in actress Betty Ting Pei's apartment in Hong Kong. But Bruce had made powerful enemies in both Hollywood and Hong Kong's criminal underworld. First, Bruce had been receiving death threats from Hong Kong triads who were angry about his decision to teach martial arts to non-Chinese students, breaking ancient traditions. Second, he had recently started his own film company and was threatening to expose corruption in the Hong Kong film industry. Third, the circumstances of his death, found in another woman's apartment, seemed designed to create scandal and distract from murder theories. But here's the most compelling evidence. Bruce had been secretly studying escape and evasion techniques, telling close friends he might need to disappear if the threats escalated. Alleged sightings in rural Chinese villages show a man matching his description still teaching martial arts to local children. Did the master of fighting master the ultimate escape technique? Number 14, River Phoenix. The Phoenix that rose from ashes. October 31st, 1993. Hollywood lost one of its most talented young actors when River Phoenix reportedly died from a drug overdose outside the Viper Room nightclub in West Hollywood. At just 23, his promising career was cut short. But River was a dedicated activist who had made enemies in powerful circles. First, River had been investigating illegal logging operations and had recently uncovered evidence of government officials taking bribes from environmental destroyers. His death conveniently silenced these investigations. Second, River was notoriously anti-drug and health-conscious. Friends say there's no way he would have willingly taken the cocktail of drugs found in his system. Third, security footage from that night has never been released, and key witnesses have remained suspiciously silent. The most shocking revelation? River's brother Joaquin, who made the 911 call, allegedly told family members years later that River had been planning to fake his death to escape Hollywood and focus full-time on environmental activism. Some believe River found his way to rise again, just like his mythical namesake. Number 15, Heath Ledger. The Joker's Final Laugh. January 22, 2008. The entertainment world lost a method-acting genius when Heath Ledger reportedly died from an accidental overdose of prescription medications in his New York apartment. His performance as the Joker was still fresh in everyone's minds. But Heath's death came at a suspiciously convenient time for several powerful people. First, Heath had been struggling with the psychological effects of playing the Joker and had told friends he'd learned things about the industry that would destroy careers during filming. Second, he was in the middle of a custody battle and had recently hired private investigators to gather dirt on Hollywood executives. Third, the combination of drugs found in his system was bizarre, not typical of someone trying to get high or even commit suicide. But here's the kicker. Heath's final film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, deals with characters who fake their deaths to escape reality. Recent sightings in Australia, where his family lives, show a man matching his description always wearing elaborate disguises. Could Heath have pulled off the Joker's greatest trick, making himself disappear? Number 16, Paul Walker. Fast and Furious escape artist. November 30th, 2013. Action movie fans lost their beloved street racer when Paul Walker reportedly died in a car crash after leaving a charity event. The Fast and Furious family mourned their brother. But Paul was an expert driver and car enthusiast. The type of crash that killed him seemed impossible for someone with his skills. First, Paul had been investigating human trafficking through his charity Reach Out Worldwide and had recently uncovered a major operation involving Hollywood elites. His death conveniently ended this investigation. Second, the car's computer system was allegedly hacked, causing the crash technology that was cutting edge at the time. Third, surveillance footage from nearby businesses mysteriously malfunctioned during the exact time of the crash. The most compelling evidence? Paul had recently told his daughter Meadow that he was considering retiring from acting to focus full-time on humanitarian work in dangerous locations where he'd need to disappear completely for safety. Some fans believe Paul drove away from fame into the ultimate witness protection program for charity workers fighting human trafficking. Number 17, Robin Williams. The comedian's greatest performance. August 11th, 2014. The world lost its most beloved comedian when Robin Williams reportedly died by suicide at his Marin County home. Fans worldwide mourn the man who brought so much laughter while hiding so much pain. But Robin's death came at a time when he was facing a devastating diagnosis that few people knew about. First, Robin had just been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, a disease that would have slowly destroyed his mind and personality. Exactly the kind of fate a perfectionist performer would want to avoid. Second, he had been secretly researching assisted dying and had connections to organizations that help people disappear rather than suffer. Third, his wife's behavior after his death seemed oddly composed, almost like she was relieved rather than devastated. But here's what's really suspicious. Robin had been talking to close friends about wanting to exit while people still remember the good times and had been secretly liquidating assets months before his death. Could Robin have written himself the ultimate exit scene and performed his way to freedom? Number 18, Philip Seymour Hoffman. The actor's final method performance. February 2nd, 2014. Hollywood lost one of its greatest character actors when Philip Seymour Hoffman reportedly died from a heroin overdose in his Greenwich Village apartment. The acting community mourned a true artist's tragic end. But Philip was a methodical perfectionist who planned every aspect of his performances, including potentially his final one. First, Philip had been struggling with addiction, but was also facing massive financial problems due to his expensive lifestyle and recent divorce. His death eliminated millions in debt and secured his children's financial future through life insurance. Second, He had been researching addiction treatment facilities in remote locations and had told friends he wanted to disappear and get clean away from temptation. Third, the drug paraphernalia found at the scene was inconsistent with his usual habits, according to people who knew his addiction patterns. The most intriguing clue? Philip's final completed film was about a man who fakes his death to escape his problems. Recent alleged sightings at remote addiction treatment centers show a man matching his description, helping other addicts in recovery. Did Philip's greatest method performance involve method disappearing? Number 19, Brittany Murphy. Clueless about her own death. December 20th, 2009. Hollywood lost its quirky, lovable actress when Brittany Murphy reportedly died from pneumonia and anemia at her Hollywood Hills home. Fans mourned the loss of Clueless's most memorable character. But Brittany's death was suspiciously similar to her husband's death just 5 months later. Too convenient to be coincidental. First, both Brittany and her husband Simon Monjack died from the exact same causes in the exact same house. The odds of this happening naturally are astronomical. Second, Brittany had been receiving death threats related to her work on government projects and had recently hired private security. Third, large amounts of money were transferred out of her accounts in the weeks before her death, suggesting someone was preparing for a long-term disappearance. But here's the most shocking evidence. Brittany's mother Sharon has never seemed genuinely grief-stricken and has made several comments suggesting Brittany is in a better place where she can finally be happy and safe. Some believe Brittany got a clue about a real threat and made the ultimate escape plan with her husband's help. Number 20, Anton Yelchin. Star Trek into hiding. June 19, 2016. The Star Trek family lost their young Chekhov when Anton Yelchin reportedly died in a freak accident, crushed by his own car in his driveway. At just 27, his promising career was cut short by what seemed like a bizarre mechanical failure. But Anton had been investigating dark secrets in Hollywood and had made dangerous enemies. First, Anton had been secretly documenting abuse by powerful Hollywood executives and had recently threatened to go public with evidence that would destroy careers. His death conveniently silenced these revelations. Second, the car that allegedly killed him had been recalled for transmission problems, but Anton was a car enthusiast who would have known about such issues. Third, security cameras at his home mysteriously malfunctioned during the exact time of the accident. The most compelling evidence? Anton had told his Star Trek co-stars that he was considering beaming away from Hollywood to focus on independent films in remote locations where he could disappear from the industry machine. Could Anton have used his Star Trek transporter technology to beam himself to safety?